I'm here in Derry's Orchard. Welcome to IOCO Ghost Town Days virtual 2020 season. We're here in Derry's apple orchard because we're talking about all of the different varieties of apples. In the IOCO town proper, apples, as one very smart woman told me, were like the potatoes of the fruit. Everybody had an apple tree. There are many varieties of apples that you would have found in the town of IOCO. You would have found Wealthy, Northern Spy, probably Fameuse apple, definitely transparent. There are over 10,000 varieties worldwide of apples, and not all of them are your perfectly red round apple. So I thought I would bring you here to Derry's Orchard and show you a few of the different varieties. So we have Ananas Renette, which is a very prolific bearer. It's a smaller apple, and when you keep it for a little while, you pick it a little bit later in September, you keep it for a while, and it tastes like full-on pineapple. This beauty over here is Liberty apple. It's always a heavy producer. It just, you know, you could probably drag it behind your truck and it would still overproduce after planting. You're probably noticing some of these little sockets here. Derry has put some of these on. We often do displays for UBC Apple Fest, and these socks help to keep the apples free from codling moth and apple maggot. That's one way of doing it. I thought I'd show you a couple more apples here. We have golden russet. I've got a golden russet right here. You can see all the russeting. We have Ilrod pigeon, very different apple. Ilrod pigeon, they often use for making wreaths in Denmark. Golden russet is one of the best keepers around. You can keep these till March, and then they taste like sort of honey and nuts. When you see orchards, it's good to have a lot of variety. You get a lot of cross-pollination going on. So Derry has placed things like golden hornet crabapple in here as a pollinator, as well as a mix of apples. In order to get apples on your apple tree, you need to have at least two different kinds of apples that bloom at the same time, and you need to have a bee of some kind carry the pollen from the blossom of one apple tree onto the blossom of another apple tree, and that's how you get apples. But you need to have different varieties, and so you see this wonderful mix of varieties of apple trees in Derry's Orchard, and that's just a couple of the things that you're gonna see here. She's got a real mix. Behind me, you can see the mason bee houses, and these are the hard workers of the orchard. Right now, these mason bee houses are empty. She has taken the cocoons away in order to keep them safe. She'll put the cocoons back out into the orchard around March to pollinate the blossoms. The bees do all of their work. They make their cocoons, they lay their eggs, and then they go dormant. And so Derry just sort of takes them away so that they're away from mites and other parasitic wasps that would come after them. But thank you for visiting us in Derry's Orchard, and I hope you're having a great day. See you later. Hi, it's Laurel, and I am here in Derry's Orchard and Nursery. And I'm standing beside one of my absolute favorite apple varieties, and you might not have heard about this one. This is called Carmen de Sonneville, and I think of it as the Red Bull of apples. It is off the scale in acids and off the scale in sugars, all in the same apple. So it goes from really sour to really sweet, all in the same taste. You might also notice that we've got some shelters over top of these apples, and you're probably wondering why. At Derry's Orchard, she has actually made shelters, row covers over all of her apples. In this way, she can grow them spray-free. She can grow varieties like Fuji and Jonagold that tend to like a more Okanagan situation, that's sort of hot and dry. She can grow those varieties here in the Lower Mainland where it is a little bit wetter, and they're beautiful, clean, sort of scab-free, because she covers them during the times that the spores are splashed from apple to apple. So she covers them. She takes the covers off in the dead of winter because otherwise Mother Nature would blow it probably over to the park. And then she rolls them back over March, April, as soon as the blossoms start opening. And then she keeps them on right through the summer. So it's a different look for an orchard, but it's a great way to keep them organic. Here is another cool apple. So this is Renette Simarenko. And this apple was so loved by the cosmonauts that they actually took this one up into space. This apple picked off the tree is quite sour, and you not that good, but when you store it for a little while, it is almost like having a cup of sugar. So when I make applesauce, I use this apple, Renette Simarenko, to actually sweeten the batches. Just some cool stories about some cool apples. Thanks for joining. See you later. Hi, it's Laurel, and thank you for joining us for the IOCO Ghost Town Days 2020 virtual season. I often get this question, especially at UBC Apple Fest or any of the apple events I go to. What if I plant the seed of this apple? So this is a golden russet apple. You know, what if I plant the seed of a golden russet apple? Will I get a golden russet? Well, no, you won't. What you will get is the combination of parents that created the seeds inside the apple. So in order to get fruit on your golden russet, you would have had to have the pollen from a different variety of apple tree carried onto the flower of your golden russet apple. The golden russet tree will produce this protective coating around the seeds, so it will always be a golden russet protective coating around the seeds. If you plant the seeds, they will not be golden russets. So how do you get a golden russet apple? Well, we do it by grafting. And when we graft, we use a rootstock apple. In this case, it's an M26 apple. We know the growth characteristics of this tree. Does it produce apples? Yes, rootstock apples do produce apples. Usually they're not that tasty. The M26 rootstock actually is a precocious rootstock, so it'll sort of push fruiting a little bit earlier. It's a semi-dwarfing rootstock, so a lot of orchardists like to use it. So normally I do this grafting in January, February. So if you can pretend for a little bit that we're in winter and we have no leaves, all right, gasp, look away. We're gonna rip off these leaves. I'm going to cut the rootstock about this high, and that's all I'm going to use of the rootstock apple. And there's a lot of you screaming out there, no, I have not just killed this apple tree. I'm just preparing it for grafting. I'm going to take off these apples. So this provides the root structure of the apple tree. Then I walk over to, say, my golden russet apple tree, and I take the current season's growth. Again, imagine this with no leaves. And I want something about the width of a pencil. This is a little bit smaller, but for our purposes, that'll work. I want about 3 to 4 buds as my cyanwood. So it's just the tip of these branches that are your cyans. I'm going to put this in my back pocket. I'm going to make an angled cut. It's much easier when you have bare root, but I'm going to make a little bit of an angled cut. I like using this protective ring. It's 2020, so I need all the protection I can get, because I do a back cut as well. And yes, I am a lefty, so the bevel of the knife is slightly on the wrong side. So I have to do a little bit of a wiggling. And this is where this round circle helps. So if the knife jumps, it's just going to hit that instead of hitting my fingers. So you can see I do a little bit of a back cut. Can you see that? I do the same thing on my piece of cyanwood. So I try to match that angle. And I've got that same angle. I put, whoops. I put it around here just in case, again, because I'm cutting back towards my hand. I like to have a little piece of protection. I get about 3/4 of the way down. You can see where I've started. And then I cut back again. So it's almost like a dovetail joint. So you can see I cut back again. So basically this increases the surface area so that you get more contact. And because it's very rare when we're grafting that we have the exact same size of rootstock with cyanwood. I am always dealing with tiny pieces of cyanwood. It will not exactly meet up, but you can see this little dovetail joint. It does not exactly meet up. You can see the difference in size. But I push it over to the side a little bit so that I have contact. And if it's secure, you should be able to sort of wiggle it around. It should be secure. So that's what that sort of dovetail joint does. And then, hello, bee. Honeybee likes my shirt. And then I just take my stretchy tape and I just cover this. And this type of tape that I have is called buddy tape, but you can use everything. This is from, I've seen duct tape used, I've seen glue. This is just quite nice. So if I do this grafting in January, February, I usually take this tape off May, June, and then I will end up with a small whip, a small apple tree by September. And often they're saleable and plantable by September. So this is how you end up with a golden russet tree. And the cool thing about grafting is this piece of wood that I've taken is the genetic piece of the original tree. So when you think of things like golden russet or the original Bramley's English seedling tree, it's not like having a copy of the Picasso. It's like actually having a piece of the Picasso. It is genetically identical. So that is the cool thing about grafting, and that is how you produce the varieties of apples that you want. Thank you for joining us. Have a great day.